Every movie taught you that a cowboy survived by the gun. That's a lie. The gun was the last resort, and often the least useful one. The guy who relied only on his revolver died of thirst, cold, infection, or stupidity. The ones who actually survived carried 20 tools no movie ever shows. And each one tells a story about how the West really worked. Number 1. Fixed blade knife. Before any revolver, the first thing a cowboy strapped to his belt every morning was a knife. And not just any knife. The Bowie knife, made popular by Jim Bowie back in the 1830s, became the most essential tool in the Old West. With it, a man cut rope to tie down cargo, opened cans of beans in the middle of nowhere, pulled thorns out of a horse's hoof, cleaned whatever game was for dinner, and even cauterized wounds when there was no doctor around, which was almost always. Unlike a revolver, which could misfire, get wet, or run out of ammo, a knife was always ready. A lot of cowboys slept with one under their blanket. In real life, a man could go weeks without firing a shot, but not a single day without using his blade. Anyone riding around without a knife in open country simply didn't last long. Number 2. Leather canteen. In the Old West, thirst killed more people than bullets. That's not an exaggeration. Entire cattle-driving routes were mapped out not by the shortest path, but by the one that passed near rivers and wells. A cowboy with an empty canteen in the desert had about 48 hours before his body started shutting down. That's why a leather canteen was treated almost like part of the body. Veteran cowboys developed an instinct for rationing every sip, and they followed a rule that might surprise a lot of people today. The horse drank first. Without the horse, you were stuck on foot in the middle of nowhere, and then your chances dropped to almost zero. That simple canteen hanging from the saddle was literally the line between making it home or ending up as bones in the desert. Number 3. Flint and Steel. The kit that never failed. A lot of people think starting a fire in the Old West was simple. It wasn't. Matches existed, but they were expensive and ruined easily. One hard rain or a river crossing was enough to lose them all. That's why a real cowboy carried flint and steel. This kit fit in a pocket and still worked wet, dirty, and after years of use. You struck the steel against the stone. The sparks fell onto a nest of dry grass, and within minutes, you had a fire going. And fire wasn't comfort, it was life or death. Without it, there was no way to cook meat, boil water to drink without getting sick, keep wolves and coyotes away at night, or cauterize a wound when there wasn't a doctor within 100 miles. On the freezing winter plains, one night without fire could be your last. That piece of stone and metal was just as essential as the saddle on a horse. Number 4. Rawhide rope. Lariat lasso. Most people think of a lasso as a tool for catching cattle, and it was. But did it stop there? Not even close. A rawhide lariat was probably the most underrated item a cowboy carried. With it, a man tied together a makeshift shelter when a storm rolled in, out of nowhere. He used it as a tourniquet if someone got badly cut far from any doctor. It worked as a winch to pull a wagon stuck in mud or a riverbed hole. During water crossings, it became a rescue line. Some cowboys even fished with it when they had to. Rawhide was chosen for one simple reason. When it got wet, it shrank and tightened knots with brutal force, which made it perfect for securing cargo or restraining an animal. It was the kind of gear that separated people who actually lived off the land from those who were just passing through. Number 5. The desert didn't go easy on anyone. During the day, the sun was brutal, but once it got dark, the temperature dropped in a way that caught a lot of cowboys off guard. The difference between daytime and nighttime temperatures could easily go over 30 degrees. Without protection from that cold, hypothermia became a real threat in just a few hours. That's why a bedroll was just as essential as water. That thick wool blanket wasn't a luxury, it was pure survival. It worked as a bed on hard ground, insulation against the freezing wind, and even an improvised stretcher when someone got hurt on the trail. A cowboy carried his bedroll rolled up and tied to the saddle every single day. Inside it, he kept his few personal belongings. It was basically his home. A man could lose almost everything on a long trip, but if he lost his blanket, his chances of surviving a night out in the open dropped hard. Number 6. In the Old West, there were no paved roads, no road signs, and no reliable maps. A cowboy crossed plains that looked the same in every direction for days on end. A mistake of just 10 degrees in the route could put a man 50 kilometers off course. In the Arizona desert or the Texas prairies, that meant ending up without water and with no chance of rescue. A pocket compass solved that problem without making a sound and without failing. It was a small instrument, usually made of brass, that fit in the palm of your hand. Many cowboys carried it with their watch, attached by a chain to their vest. Trail guides and cattle drivers depended on it as much as they depended on their own saddle. Curiously, this simple object saved more lives in the American West than a lot of firearms ever did. Number 7. In the Old West, the one who saw first was the one who survived first. A spyglass wasn't some military officer's luxury. It was a basic survival tool. From the top of a rise, a cowboy could spot a dust trail from a herd miles away, find hidden water sources, or notice smoke from an unknown camp before getting too close. In a land with no marked roads and no reliable maps, being able to see far meant making better decisions. A lot of them were compact, made of brass, and fit in a saddlebag without taking up much space. The difference between riding straight into an ambush or turning away in time could come down to those few seconds looking through the lens. It was the radar of the 19th century, simple, quiet, and with no battery. Number 8. Before GPS and paved roads, a cowboy had to rely on his own head to keep from getting lost. But trusting memory alone in a huge land with barely any landmarks was way too risky. That's why a lot of them carried hand-drawn maps, sketched on pieces of tanned leather or thick paper, folded over and over. On those maps, a man wrote down everything that mattered for staying alive, where the next water well was, which stretch had a risk of ambush, where the ground became impossible to cross when it rained. Every cowboy had his own markings, symbols only he understood. There was no standardization at all. And here's the part most people don't know. Those personal maps were so valuable, they were traded between drovers. Losing one of them was like wiping out years of experience all at once, because nobody was rebuilding that kind of knowledge overnight. Number 9. No road signs, no compass in his pocket, and no light except the moon. A cowboy depended on the sky to keep from getting lost. The North Star was the fixed point every experienced cowboy learned to find before he ever rode out alone for the first time. Finding Polaris meant knowing exactly where north was, and from there any direction could be figured out. But it didn't stop there. Constellations like the Big Dipper worked like a natural clock. Its position in the sky showed not just direction, but also the rough time of night. Drovers who drove cattle for weeks through land with no trails at all used that knowledge every night. Anyone who didn't know how to read the sky was at the mercy of chance, and in the West, going in circles on land with no water could cost you your life. The sky wasn't poetry, it was the most reliable navigation tool there was. By the way, if you're finding this interesting, I put together a full guide with all 50 forgotten survival skills the real cowboys used every day. It's called the Lost Cowboy Code, and it goes way deeper than what I can cover in this video. The link is in the pinned comment if you want to check it out. Now, back to the list. Number 10. A lot of people look at Spurs and think they were just some flashy cowboy decoration. Not even close. In the real West, your horse was everything. Transportation, work partner, and a lot of times the only thing standing between you and death. And the spur was how you talked to him when there wasn't time to think. A light touch on the flank sent the horse sideways, steering clear of a rattlesnake in the trail. A firm press meant run now, in an ambush or a stampede. Experienced cowboys knew exactly how much pressure to use. Spurs with large rowels and blunt points didn't hurt the animal, they just got the message across fast. It was silent, real-time communication. In a narrow canyon or a river crossing with a strong current, half a second of response from the horse could mean the difference between making it out alive or not. It wasn't brutality. It was the language of survival between man and animal. Number 11. Most people picture cowboys carrying nothing but guns and a lasso. But there was one item almost nobody talks about that saved more lives than a lot of the medicine back then. A simple sewing kit with a needle and thread was a matter of life and death on the trail. Torn clothes in the desert were not just inconvenient, they were real danger. Skin exposed to the Texas sun or the freezing wind on the plains could kill you in days. Cowboys stitched up boots with holes in them, patched busted saddles, and improvised repairs on cracked canteens. But the harshest use was something else. When a cowboy got badly cut on wire or a branch and there was no doctor for hundreds of miles, it was that same needle and cotton thread that closed the cut in his skin. No anesthesia, no disinfectant. The man bit down on a piece of leather and took it. That kit fit in the palm of your hand and weighed almost nothing. But the difference between having it or not could be the difference between making it alive to